There we go. Okay, I'm hitting go live.
Okay, thank you and good morning, everyone. And welcome to the June meeting of the Board of Directors for the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. I've been away for the past week and seem to have picked up a bit of a cold, so hopefully my voice holds out this morning. But we've got lots to accomplish today, so we'll get started. Just a quick reminder that Emily Chandler is our host. And if you have any connection issues or any technical problems, just contact Emily through the chat feature. Reminder to have your microphone muted if you're not speaking, and that way we can eliminate the background noise. And a reminder that today's meeting is being recorded and live streamed on our YouTube channel. And that's part of our requirement to allow public viewing of the proceedings. I do have regrets today from Nancy Manning. And with that, I'm going to ask Michelle to do the roll call for attendance, please.
Marie Blosh.
Marie, are you there?
I'm here. I'm having a few problems, but I'm here.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Anna Hopkins.
Here.
Sandy Levin.
Here.
Margaret Lupton.
Here.
Nancy Manning is sent her regrets. Hugh McDermott. Paul Mitchell.
Here.
Anna Marie Murray.
Present.
Brian Petrie.
Present.
Jim Reffel.
Here.
Joe Salter.
Here.
Mark Schadenberg. Alex Westman
Here.
and Alan Dale.
Present.
So it looks like Mark and Hugh are still not on.
Okay. Well, we got 12 board members to start and we'll get underway. So at this time, we will begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenape peoples who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, Munsee Delaware Nation, and Delaware Nation at Moraviantown. In the region, there are 11 First Nation communities and a growing Indigenous urban population. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island. Next, we have item number 2, modifications to the agenda. I don't believe there's anything, but does anyone have anything they want to propose to modify the agenda? I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so item number 3 is declarations of pecuniary interest. Is there anything from any board members today?
Yes.
Go ahead, Margaret.
You want me to read my form? Is that what you want?
Or just tell us the general nature of the conflict, and then we'll know what agenda item it pertains to.
Well, it pertains to item 5.2.1, which is the compensation review. And I believe I should declare a conflict of interest. My granddaughter, Hannah Ritzma, is now a summer employee for Upper Thames. And so I thought I better make that. That has just happened since the last meeting. So I wanted to make that known.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. And yep, 5.2 there, the compensation review. Thank you. And congratulations to your granddaughter, and hope
she's over the moon. She quite enjoys it.
That's good. Hope she has a good summer working for the Upper Thames. Okay, anyone else? Any other declarations for today? Okay, not seeing or hearing anything. So we have no presentations for this morning's meeting. Item number 5 is administrative business. And 5.1 is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting on May the 24th. And those were circulated to the board members, including the closed session minutes. So if I could get Anna to move that and Tony to second it, please.
I will move it.
And seconded.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Any errors or omissions regarding the minutes from May 24th? I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so if there's no questions or comments, I'm going to call for the vote. And Michelle, if you could do the roll, please.
And I'll just note before I start that I did notice Mark and Hugh have now joined the meeting.
Okay, great, good.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Margaret, are you there?
I'm
This
trying
is-
to watch what I'm doing.
Oh,
Yes, yes, I think it's all right for me to.
yep, yeah, this is the
One
minutes,
was-
so you're good.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Mark, are you there? Maybe Mark's still trying to get connected.
looking down the list, it looks like we've lost him again. And Alan Dale.
Yes. Okay, so that motion is carried. Thank you. Next item we have is 5.2.1, and that is the referred motion from the last meeting regarding the compensation review. And we did have a discussion last meeting, and consultant Mary Ann Love was available to answer any questions. Unfortunately, we had a very long meeting last month, and when we got into the noon hour, we lost a number of board members, so this item was referred to this meeting. So Tracy, I'll turn it over to you for some comments.
Sure. Thank you, Alan. Through the chair, I just wanted to bring up a few the discussion points. Again, we tried to provide a report back that focused in on providing a general summary of the consultant's recommendations, and at the same time not disclosing any labor relations and details that were personnel in nature, but again to provide that broader context about more about how we're going to implement the compensation review. That seemed to be where many of the questions lied, and we certainly wanted to provide this this update now and start the implementation now to phase in the implementation. As you know, it's been long overdue. The full compensation.
Can I
review.
just interrupt for 1 minute, please? What do I do at this point? Am I going to be cut out of the meeting, or do I just turn it off, or what do I do?
No, I can confirm, Margaret. You can absolutely stay in because this is open session. We would just ask that you don't participate in the debate or
Oh,
vote.
okay. I
So you
just
can
wanted-
listen in. Yep.
I've never done this on Zoom
Yeah.
before, so I wanted to check. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I appreciate that you're asking for the
Yeah.
clarification, Margaret. Thank
Yep,
you.
that's good. We'll make sure everything's clear and we're all set. So good. Carry on, Tracy.
Sure. So with the phase in, the board is actually going to be seeing an updated budget. We typically do a mid-year budget update in August. And some of those amendments will include not only the change in wages increases that we're proposing, but also some of the revenue that has changed as well. Just recently, in the last few weeks, we've had funding announcements from the federal government in the tune of $238,000 for a program that continues the rest of the year and ends March 31st, and another $160,000 contribution agreement from DFO for some species at risk work over the next 3 years. So just a few examples of different revenue sources and how our budget is constantly changing to reflect different different inputs that occur over the course of the year. But I also wanted to add in a little bit of the discussions, because as we've had this opportunity to speak to our municipalities about our inventories of programs and services, just echoing that, and I believe Councillor Anna Hopkins had mentioned as well at the AMO conference, many concerns with municipalities are the same as ours. Having challenges filling positions, having competitive wages in order to attract those individuals, but then at the same time, being able to retain those individuals as well. Even having a call with Mayor Matheson in Stratford, having the same challenges there, especially when they're in such proximity to Kitchener-Waterloo and those other municipal centers. So it's not something that's surprising. I think all municipalities are going through the same thing. As well, with the report provided, we provided an overview of a communications plan. Again, we've been regularly talking to our staff at our municipalities as we're going through this transition period and preparing for our future budgeting process. And all are very understanding of what our challenge is, but also understanding that we need to reflect the true costs of providing our programs and services as we're entering into these agreements with our municipalities going forward. So, you know, that's the real push, being able to implement as soon as we can so that we're prepared and have a long-term plan for the authority moving forward. And again, we want to emphasize with new hires and through our recruitment process, it's not just about wages. You know, we offer OMERS, which is a huge benefit to be able to provide. We do have a competitive benefits package. We offer flex time and flex place policies, or updating those policies right now to also include opportunities for hybrid where it's feasible. Our working environment here at the WCC, you know, we're in a LEED Platinum building. We're surrounded by nature, an opportunity to get out, and every desk space has a view or vista of that natural environment. And I think we're a pretty good group to work with too, the culture. The updated salary grid would be the last piece in that puzzle that needs to reflect what the market is requiring in these challenging times. So again, our focus is both on attracting and retaining our staff, and I think all of our municipalities are very understanding of those challenges right now. Just thought I'd give a little bit of that background and context to know that, you know, this is an ongoing conversation with our partners, and it goes hand in hand with our inventory of programs and services and our agreements moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. We'll open up for some questions. And first of all, I have Marie, so go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a procedural question here. Since last month we dealt with this in closed session, and now we seem to be just doing it in open session. Should we be in closed session for this?
We've had some discussion about that already, but Tracy, I'll let you tackle that.
Sure, through the chair. We felt that because this doesn't include any specific details on the actual fee schedule or the schedule of updated salary grids, it's not disclosing personal information or labor negotiations. We're trying to keep this fairly high level because really it's about the broader implementation, and we know that number. And that's what the report outlines, that 1.1 million to implement. And that seemed to be the thrust of the discussions.
I think we've seen the consultant's report, we've looked into that. Now, if you want to go backwards and delve into the details of that again, then yeah, you would need to do that in closed session. But I think we've all had a chance to read that report and digest it. And as Tracy said, we are now to the next stage. We know what the total cost is. Do we do it at this time or not? So that's, you know, if we can keep the discussion focused on that, as she said, at a high level, then we really couldn't justify doing it behind closed doors. So any other questions or comments, Marie?
I seem to have gotten kicked out of the meeting again. If I'm back, okay, I just wanted.
You're back, you're there.
Before- Okay, thank you.
Okay, if that's it, then next we have Brian. Are you there, Brian? You might be on mute.
Yep, I was just trying to find my mute button because it's not my first time in a Zoom meeting and I should know where it is. But thank you very much through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there's no way we don't have to do this because obviously, again, we're seeing the struggles throughout the sector and all sectors in finding and retaining employees. And it was quite clear that from this that we need to update not only our salary structure, but our process for how we come apart, how we keep that up to date and moving forward. And I'm happy to see that staff has put a lot of time and effort into finding solutions to those issues. We've always used CPI every year. We thought that was adequate. It turns out it wasn't. But you can see in the report there is different metrics going to be used going forward. So hopefully over time, we don't have a huge jump like this again. That's always the goal of any policy, is to not have the spikes and valleys and then keep competitive. Is a large number? Yes, and unfortunately, I think that's just reflective from the last time, the gap in time since a full review has been done. I'm supportive of it. I think that staff is aware of the issues of where do we find the money, and I can see that in the report again. They're looking everywhere to try to limit the impacts on municipalities. But again, municipalities do understand they're going through the same thing as well, and everybody is taking on these reviews to try to stay competitive and in a very competitive market. So I can support it.
Okay, thank you. And next we'll go to Tony. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Geez, after listening to Tracy and all the benefits of fresh air and flex time and whatnot, I'm not sure we need this. Anyway, just kidding. But in reality, I guess, so we're going to see an updated budget here at the next board meeting, if I understand Tracy correctly. I just wonder how we can make significant financial decisions without seeing it accounted for in the budget itself, or at least the updated budget. But other than that, I guess I have one question through the chair to staff. So as I read the report, the costs are calculated based on vacancies being filled and full complement of staff, as I understand it. However, we do have vacancies at the present time. I guess, is the intent to make this adjustment to levy without those vacancies filled? In fact, they may not be filled until the new year or the next budget. So are we planning to implement this cost adjustment through levy with unfilled positions, and planning on that as retained revenue, or how are you going to deal with that? Or are you only going to implement it as people are hired in a quarterly or some type of graduated fashion? I guess it appears to me that the plan is to just implement the full adjustment, even though there are vacancies and positions unfilled. So I just wanted to be clear on that. Thank you.
Okay. Tracy, you want to?
Okay, if I can, through the chair, when we're talking about vacancies right now, it's because those vacancies are planned hired and to be hired or posted. And sometimes the vacancies have extended a little bit longer because of the hiring process has taken longer. You know, for example, we've hired someone and then they opted for a different position and not been filled. So, you know, the amount that we're looking forward, we're trying to use revenue that we have now as savings for this year, but in future years for levy, again, that would be on the full staffing complement that we would anticipate each year. I think that if that answers your question. I'm not sure.
Any follow-up there, Tony, or?
Yeah, so to be clear, the idea is to implement full 1.1 million adjustment to levy and fill the positions as they are potentially filled.
I think that's going to be the full 1.1 million, but we're hoping not to pay for it through levy. So, Tracy?
If I can, that's exactly right, Alan. Our goal is not to have the whole cost through levy, although that's a worst case scenario. And then I would remind you too, for this year, it would only be the amount needed for this last half of the year. So it's a phased in approach. So it wouldn't certainly require a levy adjustment mid-year to require that full complement of staff in those positions, because it's only for half the year if it was to be implemented in July, as we're proposing.
Yes, so through the chair, ultimately it is a levy adjustment going forward, regardless for years 2 and 3. So anyway, just to be clear on that, it is levy adjustment.
Well, I want to jump in here, but we've got another item coming up here, which is fees policy, and that's part of this is going to be recouped through fees. And it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. What do we do first? Well, we got to know what our costs are, our current costs, and get that in there so that we know what to charge for fees. Because if we don't update our fees and recoup our costs and have a realistic fee, then we are going to have to make up this shortfall through things like levy. And that's what we don't want to do. We want to make sure that our fees are realistic. And we do have some, as Tracy was saying, some new revenue funds and some of these contracts. So when we bid on contracts, we need to know what our current and realistic expenses are, and make sure that we don't bid on a contract that we're going to lose money on. Tracy, you correct me if I've got it straight here, but.
Oh, thank you through the chair. That's exactly it. Those are some great examples of how we have always tried to reduce the impacts on levy by going out and finding different contract revenue. From our past budgets, we typically have 38%, 40% that's derived through levy, and the remainder are made up through fees and other additional contracts. So again, we don't know yet until we have our budget processes, and we're in the middle of changing those budget processes moving forward. So we need to know what those true costs are as we're negotiating these agreements and having future contracts, so that we can incorporate those into the true cost and how we're going to recover them, either through fees, through other contract revenue, or through that, depending on the category program as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that's the question, Mr. Chair. I guess just how much of this is going to be potentially covered through contracts and other revenue streams versus levy. But regardless, ultimately it does fall to the levy as a way to cover the costs going forward. Thanks.
That's always, your default is levy. And, but yeah, we will try to get as much as we can through contracts and MOUs and such, but and I appreciate that we're there's a lot of changes going on right now with the whole reforms to the CA Act, and there's a lot of things that happening at once. So it's kind of like trying to put the missing pieces into the puzzle, but doing it all on the fly. So it is challenging. I recognize that. I've got Sandy next and then Anna. So go ahead, Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, I notice I'm down as the mover of the motion, so I'd actually like to move the motion so that it's on the floor. And if Joe would be willing to second it, and then I'll speak to it.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, move this block. There it is. Referred motion there. It's moved by Sandy Levin and second by Joe Salter that the board accept the recommended change in salary structure. Are you still willing to second that, Joe?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
now back to you, Sandy.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I mean, I've done a little bit of kind of calculating of how many folks from staff have either retired or left for other positions in the last 12 to 18 months, and it's about 15% of the workforce. And that's quite significant. And I know there was a comment at the last meeting about, well, there's no guarantee this change is going to make that much of a difference. Well, yeah, that may be true, but I'll pretty much guarantee you that if we don't make this change, it's going to get worse because we will be out of line. I took some time as well to look at our postings compared to postings in other municipalities and other CAs. And yeah, we're out of line. We are compensating less for similar positions, not necessarily across the board, but in a number of positions. And even our current position postings don't even point out that the salaries are under review. So somebody might not even be applying thinking, we're way out of line. And as mentioned by Tracy, and I think it's known by most of us, is that we collectively are in a situation where people are leaving work for various reasons, and people who have positions are able to shift much more flexibly. I was told of a situation where a relatively newly hired engineer for a municipality got an offer in another municipality for more money, and the deal was that particular employee didn't even have to move to that municipality. So I recognize there's a cost here, and I recognize there's a sudden jump here, but given we've been working on this for a couple of years, I mean, we made the motion a couple of years ago to do the review. This is what's happened, and I'm very comfortable moving the motion and believe we need to move on and give staff an opportunity to show us how it'll be accommodated in this year budget and future budgets. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Next, we have Anna.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And my apologies that my name says Chair in front of my name, and I'm having problems with my Zoom meeting here, unable to change it. So my apologies. And I'm also speaking, I can't see anyone. So anyhow.
It's okay, go ahead, you're fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, I really do appreciate the comments. And I also understand the concerns around where are we going to get this money from. I think it's to me, it's almost, it's important, but what's more important is that we understand when we do our negotiations with municipalities that they understand what the costs are. And I know we're going to be undertaking that soon, if not already, creating those agreements. But we really need to know what our costs are going to be. And I want to thank staff for being a little bit proactive here in seeing what's ahead of us. And given the uncertainty, that is surrounding CAs today, we really need to be a bit proactive and as a board member, really understanding the challenges. No matter what board we sit on these days, we are all facing the same questions and concerns with increases in boards, commissions, and the municipality. And how we're going to deal with all that is something that we're going to have to do, but we need to understand what the costs are. So I am going to be supporting this. We say it over and over again. We want to attract talent. We want to retain the employees that we have. This is going to assist in that. I don't see this as being a problem when it comes to where we're going to find the money. Is it going to come from the levy? And eventually it probably will, but it's more the need to do something to keep our staff and to retain and attract talent, I think is really going to be one of the biggest challenges we're going to find. And I like to think that we are proactive when it comes to that. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Next we have Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to see the budget increase $1.1 million more than anybody else, regardless of how we fund it, whether through levy or otherwise. But I agree that we don't have any option on this. And I think the key point is that the Upper Thames hasn't done a full review of the remuneration for about 15 years. And it may have benefited from it because we have been able to underpay some of our staff relative to competition, because many of our staff were baby boomers who had 20 or 30 years in their positions and working for the Upper Thames, were happy here and weren't looking to move on. But those people now have reached the age where they're moving on to retirement. And the people that we're looking to replace them with don't have that same loyalty to the organization, and they have much more flexibility in what they're looking for in employment. So I don't think we have any option. I'm going to support this motion that we have to be competitive to get good people, and this is the reality of the job situation, not only in conservation authorities and municipal, but in the public and the rest of the sector. All sectors are facing the same issues. So just my confirmation of why I'm going to vote to support.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So we've had some good discussion on this for the last meeting and today's meeting. I'm not seeing any other hands. Oh, there we go, Marie. Go ahead, Marie.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I mean, I am supportive of this motion, but it's not, and I understand the concern about, where's the money coming from? But I just want to point out that certainly over the years that I've been on this board, the staff have always excelled and made every effort to find sources of funding. Other than, we're not just sort of cavalierly, whatever the word is, cavalierly saying, oh, we'll just toss it on to the levy. And I think that history of the staff always looking for other sources of funding will continue. And certainly I think that's a factor that we need to take into account as well.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I am going to call for the vote. Now, Margaret has declared a conflict, so Margaret won't be part of the voting, but I will ask Michelle to do the roll, please, for the vote.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I think because this is impacting levy, and because the cost of levy is distributed unequally through municipalities based on our bylaws, it has to be a weighted vote.
We got into a problem with this before because I think a weighted vote had to be only pertains to a budget vote, and a budget vote we had to give 30 days notice to member municipalities.
I think if you check section 14.7 of our bylaws, it speaks to that. I just want to be clear.
Well, I see Tracy and Michelle are both got their bylaw books out and are checking this out. So because I know last time we talked too about the final, when it actually came to putting everything in the budget package, and the budget package, that was a weighted vote. But I will.
I believe I believe it speaks to levy.
I will give staff a moment here. While staff are looking at this, I see Sandy. Have you got some insight into this?
Oh, Mr. Chair, this is not a vote on the levy. This is not a vote on the budget. That's
what we're just going to confirm here. Because as I said last year, it was preliminary things, and we determined it was only when it came to the putting it all together in the final package and we gave the member municipalities the 30 days notice, and that was the weighted vote. But I'll give Tracy and Michelle a moment here to confirm that.
Well, through the chair, it does impact the levy beyond year one. And we were given a sheet saying, suggesting what the worst case scenario is on the impact of municipal levies. So I just want to be clear that we haven't made an error in the voting process. So.
Okay, Tracy, you look like
Well,
you found something, or?
Well, if I can add through the chairs, that this isn't going to impact the levy this year. So future years potentially, but there's no additional impact to the levy allotment that's already been established for 2022.
And the levy for next year, we will discuss as part of the budget process and have the final vote on that at our meeting in next February.
That's correct. I see Sandy has his hand up.
Okay, so just to confirm that then, that
Yeah,
if this
Mr. Chair,
passes, it'll go through July 1st, and everything this year will not be affecting this year's levy. Go ahead, Sandy.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the benefit of the rest of the board, section 14.7 reads, at the meeting of the authority at which the non-matching levy is to be approved, the Secretary Treasurer shall conduct a vote to approve of non-matching levy by a weighted majority of the members present. Now, we are not approving the non-matching levy today. Therefore, my opinion is I think we are able to do this without a weighted vote. And we are being consistent with our administrative bylaw.
Okay, that was my understanding. I think, from what Sandy and Tracy have read, I think we are okay here and we are in conformity. Okay, so I don't see the need for a weighted vote, and we will have a regular vote on this item. And as I said, Margaret has declared a conflict, so she will not be refraining from voting. And back to you, Michelle.
Okay, and sorry, one more thing just before we started. At the last meeting on this motion, Tony, you requested a recorded vote. I just wanted to see if that still stood.
And I would say, yes, that should remain in place. Yep.
Okay, that will be recorded in the minute. The results will be recorded in the minutes as a recorded vote. Okay, Marie Blosh.
Marie, are you there?
Okay, Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg. Okay, so it looks like Mark is not here. Alex Westman
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So that is carried, and I believe it was carried unanimously. So, okay. Thank you very much, everyone. And with that, we'll move on to the next item. And next we have, there's nothing for correspondence. Takes us to item number 6, which is reports. First report there, 6.1, is the 20-year flood control capital update. And just if I could get Sandy to move that and Margaret to second it, please.
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to point out, when the original package went out on Tuesday, attachment 2 was missing. Now, Michelle did send out a correction on Friday. So hopefully everybody saw it again. There was the complete package, and all 3 attachments were there for this report. So sorry about that, folks, and I hope it didn't cause too much confusion. But all 3 attachments are there. So I'll just get Tracy to make a few comments, and then I'll open up for questions. So go ahead, Tracy.
I just saw Sandy's hand raised, so I wasn't sure if it was a matter of process or.
Have you got just a question for Sandy or something, or you want
Just
to
a
point out,
question,
or-
so I'll wait for Tracy.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Sometimes when I see this hand raised, I'm uncertain if it needs to be dealt with immediately. So thank you for that. I just want to point out that this report ties into the report that we have in our agenda package today under 7.2, related to asset management and multi-year budget processes. So with the 20-year flood control capital budget, we've been able to have this for some years now. I don't even remember how far back it goes, but being able to understand our structures and the maintenance and improvements that's required on those structures has been part of what we've been doing. But certainly that is going to be a requirement moving forward through regulation too. So just wanted to point that out, that there's a bit of a connection and to highlight this is the type of information that will be used to further our asset management planning. And I know both Dave Charles and Sarjeet are here today if anyone has any questions. Dave, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything else to the report.
No, I think you covered it very well, Tracy. We're just open for any questions the board may have.
Okay, thank you. And then, so we'll go for questions, and Sandy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's one of my favorite reports because I keep track of it every year, and then notice that the totals have gone down, which is nice. Primarily, I suppose, because of the work that's been done in London on the West London dike. But I did notice a bit of a change for the St. Mary's floodwall and channel. Costs are increasing a little bit. I assume that has to do specifically with that structure. And speaking about levy changes, has the town of St. Mary's been twigged a bit about this change because it will fall on their levy?
Yes, and through the chair, that's an excellent question, Sandy, and that's a very good pickup by you. So there's been some late developments on the St. Mary's floodwall. We did a recent inspection, so myself and Sarjeet and Ian Robotham, the maintenance mechanic, and we've noticed that there's been some concrete cracking on the back of the floodwall. So, and this is all late developments, we think it may be because of the latest flood event back in 2018. So this cracking wasn't picked up by the consultant engineer, which was BM Ross, back when we did the latest structural remediation as part of the $1 million project, like it was around 1.1 million. So this is all new developments, and it seems to have, it didn't really seem to come to the surface until this last freeze thaw cycle. So we have added a significant amount to the 20-year plan, which does increase the title or the total like you speak of, Sandy, but at the same time too, we haven't been able to bring into it on a consultant yet to do a thorough inspection to see exactly what the design would be for the remediation. So, and we have not got in touch with Jeff Wolf yet. We have been in touch with Jeff Wolf about some minor repairs that are ongoing right now to the tune of $15,000, which is the current WICI project. We will be scheduling an inspection with Jeff Wolf shortly to talk about the exact item that you brought up as far as that increase and just basically to talk through the timing with Jeff as far as how he would like to participate and just kind of allocating a budget moving forward.
Thank you. One more question, Mr. Chair. You through you to Dave. Dave, you mentioned the consultant didn't pick this up. Is that because that was before the last flood event or after? And if it was after, are we a bit concerned that the consultant didn't catch it and maybe they owe us something for that?
No, but that's a great question again. So the final inspection for the St. Mary's floodwall previous project was before COVID. So, and this is just speculation, what I said about that.
Oh, okay.
2018 flood event being the leading cause. We don't exactly know that, but it would take a couple of years to come to the surface type thing. And we did a thorough inspection last year in-house. That cracking wasn't visible at the time. So we think it may have been caused by this last winter, the freeze thaw cycle. So we and this is just all in kind of recent developments since the spring type thing. So until we bring a consultant on board to do a more thorough inspection, now that that cracking is visible, we really don't know what we're up against. But that's a very good point you just made, Sandy. But there's no recourse on BM Ross whatsoever. They did an excellent job on that project. This is all since they've completed their contract.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And David, just to be clear, the fellow you mentioned, he works for the town of St. Mary's?
Jeff Wolf, yes, he's our contact at Jeff Wolf. He's their, I'm trying to think what his title is, their capital project coordinator, asset management type person.
Yeah, okay.
Jeff, since my time, started at the Upper Towns in 2017.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for all the board members, because I know that was part of Sandy's question of have we communicated with St. Mary's, and we absolutely have, and will continue to do so. So thank you.
Yes.
Anna, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And unlike Sandy, who follows the numbers year to year, I do not. So my question is around the attachment 1 on the 20-year flood control capital repair plan summary as it relates to Springbank Dam, and just wanted to make sure those numbers are based on the decision that the dam is going to be decommissioned.
Yes, and that's an excellent question, Anna. So we've left the numbers in for the Springbank Dam project. And the reason we have is, and you are correct, the City of London has entered into an agreement with Stantec to do the design for the decommissioning. But at the same time, until that work is actually done, we're leaving it in the 20-year plan in case once they do the design and it goes out for tender, it may be over budget. The City of London may not proceed with that work for budget reasons. So we're leaving it in for now until that work's done. And then at that time, we'll start to remove the items as they're completed.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Anna. Any other questions or comments on this report? I'm not seeing or hearing anything. So if there's no further questions or comments, we've got the motion there, and I will call for the vote. So Michelle, if you could do the roll, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes,
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So that is carried. Thank you very much. And that takes us down to the next report, which is 6.2. And this is the planning and regulations fee policy. And if I could get Anna Marie to move this and Hugh to second it, please.
So moved. So seconded.
Okay, thank you. So we've got Jenna here to answer questions, and I know there's been some last minute communication on this item, but Tracy, I'll turn it over to you first.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I just wanted to highlight that what Jenna's put together here is an updated fee schedule. Now, I think at our last meeting, it was noted that this fee schedule would be updated at this month's meeting. And then back when we typically review all of our fee schedules in December, we noted that there wasn't going to be any fee increases for planning and regs at that time, still awaiting those phase 2 regulations. What's the province calling it here? The minister's list of classes of programs and services in respect to which conservation authorities may charge a fee. So that was released back in April. So with that new information, Jenna could then look at the updates to the fee schedule, but the fee policy remains the same. And we've typically, for planning and regulations, had a 50% cost recovery recognizing that much of our planning and regulations goals and responsibilities is about sharing information so people understand what potential constraints can be on their properties, and wanting to share information so that people can make informed decisions, either about purchasing or potential development. So that's where that background comes from. Interestingly enough, I was on a call just a couple weeks ago with the Southwest CAs and the GMs of all of those CAs. And Conservation Ontario was requesting those CAs that had fees policies in place to provide them. They're putting together a template to be considered for all CAs to have an updated fees policy. And ourselves and UTRCA were the only two CAs that actually had a fees policy in place. Many have fee schedules that they just update on an annual basis, but not that broader policy background that provides that reasoning for why fees are based on what they are. In the case of planning and regulations, that user pay principle, and making sure that fees do not exceed the cost to deliver the programs. And some of those same themes are in the new regulations and the requirements, but until we had those finalized through the phase 2 regulations, it was still uncertain. So Jenna put together the report for consideration, and certainly can answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. So questions or comments, and I see we got Sandy first. So go ahead, Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And really wasn't going to comment on this report until I saw the email from the London Development Institute. So I wanted to ask a couple of questions. First, I noticed in the report under the chart that's been drawn is an estimate of our planning and permit fees for 2022 based on our existing fee schedule. With this change coming into effect July 1st, roughly how much change in our fee schedule are you expecting net?
Okay, Jenna, do you have any idea on that? Any ballpark figure for us at all?
Yes, for sure. Yes, through you, Chair. We're expecting that the fee increases may result in an increase in fee revenue of about $320,000. Since we're proposing to implement this halfway through the year, July 1st, it would be half that. So we're expecting kind of conservatively $160,000 in additional fee revenue for 2022.
Okay, any follow-up, Sandy?
Yeah, so if we delayed this by 2 months as suggested by the email we got, we're giving up what it sounds like roughly, if my math is correct, about $50,000 if we were to delay the decision by 2 months. Is that a fair estimate, Jenna, through the chair to staff?
Yeah, through you, Chair, I would say that's probably accurate.
So the trade-off here is between $50,000 in revenue versus some public relations benefit, because Mr. Wallace has suggested a meeting with staff to get a better idea of where these changes are coming from. Maybe he would congratulate us for only charging 30% of the cost. Over the years, although this is something that the City of London also does, believe it or not. I'm just kind of halfway on this one because the public relations may benefit us because conservation authorities are often criticized unnecessarily by folks in the industry, and this may help us moving forward as things progress. So I want to hear from other members of the board on the idea of if we wait 2 months. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Next we go to Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I compliment Sandy on his concern for public relations, and actually I when I first saw this report, I was going to ask that question as to who we might have had discussions with in the public realm and stakeholder network. So anyway, that's interesting to see that request. And certainly for a month or two, I understand the cost implications, but there might be an intrinsic value to that. I guess the thing that really struck me most when I looked at this was the pre-consultation proposed fee of $300. And I see that clearly it's intended that there would be a reduction in fee of the actual application once it's submitted. But over the years, I've heard more and more times about staff saying, geez, I wish they'd only talked to us first. It would have made the application better and so on and so forth. And I don't want to see us deter people from taking that initial step of pre-consultation. Also, I know that people, when they look at buying a property, you know, they may ask some questions of the Conservation Authority before they make that offer to purchase or so on and so forth. And I'm really struggling with the pre-consultation fee. It's from 0 to 300, which is a huge increase. Again, I want people to come to us willingly, and I think that helps educate the community and planners and developers and construction companies and everybody else that work on regulated properties and areas within our jurisdictions. So that one particular fee just stuck out to me as being a barrier to encourage people to work with us initially. And I just, you know, I hear about applications that come in and this is missing and that's missing and part of the information is there and isn't there, and it delays the time and causes more workload for our staff. So are we going to say that if they haven't done the pre-consultation, we would entertain applications? Is that what this is saying? I'm not sure. But anyway, I have a concern with regards to that pre-consultation fee. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Jenna, can you shed some light on this one for us, please?
Sure, through you, Chair. I guess I would say that a lot of our fee changes that we're proposing have really been carefully considered. So we've talked with staff and really tried to look at kind of level of effort for each type of category within our fee schedules, the amount of time that gets invested at a staff level, and tried to reflect that in our fees. While also kind of making comparisons to some of our neighboring CAs and the other high growth CAs around the province. And I would say, I believe I noted in my report that we referred to a number of conservation authorities that have undertaken fees reviews through external consultants. And referred to those reports. And one of those reports was done, a couple of those reports were just done last year, one being our neighboring CA, the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority. So their fees were reviewed by an external consultant last year, and they implemented new fees for the beginning of this year, for January. And a number of our proposed fees are directly in line with what St. Clair changed their fees to. So I mean, I would say that a lot of what we're proposing is very comparable to our neighboring CA, which is, you know, not only our neighbor, but also a more rural and smaller CA. So I guess we definitely feel that what we're proposing reflects what others are charging and what we really should be charging based on the amount of time and effort that are going into a lot of these categories. In terms of pre-consultation, I guess that's we've added that to our planning fee schedule. I'm not sure it's intended to capture you know, an individual landowner that's calling up a regulations officer with ideas around renovations and asking questions about what we might approve. So I believe that that category would be for larger development applications as they're coming in through our planning staff, where we're often getting involved in pre-consultation. And as I said, it's meant to be a reflection of staff time and effort that often go into those pre-consultation discussions. And of course, we've indicated that we would reduce their overall fees as the application progresses, and remove those pre-consultation costs from further charges.
Okay, Tony, you want us to follow up here?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on that note, then, I appreciate the response from Jenna. Should there not be some definition put to the pre-consultation intent, I guess, I mean, it seems a little bit ambiguous the way it's put in the chart there. So I think it would be helpful. We don't want to discourage the small private individuals from consulting with us. So if we could have some definition in that, that would be helpful.
Okay, thanks. Jenna?
Yeah, through you, Chair, for sure. We have a number of definitions in our fee schedules that weren't included in the report, and I apologize for that. But yeah, there's quite a number of definitions that are attached to our fee schedules, and of course, yeah, we would provide some more information and define what that pre-consultation would include, for sure.
Okay, that's good. Let's move on now to Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I'm going to go on the other side of the argument on this one, because this is basically just staff updating us on them following our policy as the board. If we don't want them to do that, then we need to update our policy to reflect what we want staff to do. Because this is the current policy, is that we want a 50-50 ratio. I personally think that's a little bit low. I would like to see as much cost recovery as possible. In the municipal sector, when it comes to building department, we're going for 100% cost recovery. That's probably a little bit high. We don't do it in all sectors. Residential permits are lower because we do want compliance. Whereas if it's a for-profit item, that person is as commercial enterprise, they should be paying for the services they were receiving, and it shouldn't be put on levy payers of the municipality to do so. Perhaps maybe a municipality we can share the cost of them because they are paying levy and so they're contributing to it already. But if you're a corporate citizen and you're doing something to make money as a development, you should be paying the full cost of that into your enterprise, and then you can recoup that on the other end. I do get their point that it's happening super fast and that may be hard on their business models. Again, when Ingersoll went for the 100% cost recovery, we heard from the development community they're going to pull out. They're never going to happen again. We'll never see a house built in the community. And I guess that was a little bit of fear mongering where it obviously we see the development that takes place now. So it is a change, yes, but is it staff following direction of the board? Yes, as well. So if the board doesn't want that to happen, then I suggest we change the policy to something different for what we would like staff to do, because staff is just following our direction. And I commend them for that. And I think everybody should, because that's what staff should do when boards give direction. So again, it hasn't happened for a while. People have been getting a break, which is fine because, again, staff is busy. They don't always have time to update everything all the time. But I don't see anything in here where the actual fee proposed is out of line with what's going to happen. Tony, I had the same questions of you about the consultation fee as well. But yeah, as long as if it's for larger developments, then yeah, staff's going to take up time and they're going to have to deal with that. And again, that's professional commercial enterprises that are going to want specific information, and they should be paying for that information. The Upper Thames is a service, and it's delegated to perform these duties. It doesn't mean it has to do them for free.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Anna. Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wasn't going to say anything here with this recommendation, but I just want to follow up with what Brian said. To me, it's about policy. So this is what I think we should be talking about as a board, if we want to change our policy to go 50-50 recovery, we're at 30%, then we need to have that discussion. I think, you know, as we're being asked to do more as well, we have to be really careful that we just don't react to things. I appreciate LDI's letter, Mr. Wallace, his letter, but I think he does make a good point that we should be open to have dialogues with stakeholders in the community when it comes to fees. That can happen regardless or not. But to me, if we want to have a conversation to change our policy, I think that's the conversation we should be having here today. I'm not interested in doing that at the moment. I want to make a quick comment on the pre-consultation. I think, you know, Tony does make a good point. And we had a discussion at the planning committee with the City of London not too long ago with the changes in provincial guidelines that are sort of speeding up applications, and the concern, how do we get everything done? Not just the municipality, but also the development community. That pre-consultation process may be where more work can be done, and therefore more work, more fees. But I think I'm agreeable with the changes that are being presented here to us today, and would encourage Upper Thames to you know, reach out to stakeholders and listen to what they've got to say as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Marie. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things. First of all, yeah, when I looked at this, I kind of questioned the pre-consultation fee as well. And I think, though, with that, some further explanation as to when that would apply, it certainly would be better. In terms of the letter from the industry, I mean, I do think perhaps there needs to be communication back explaining it, but I don't think we need to put it off because, I mean, obviously they're going to say they don't want to pay them. And as long as it's following our policy and we can explain that, I think that should be sufficient. But I had one other question concerning, perhaps through you to Jenna, on table 3 with the, oh, I lost it here. I think I lost it here, but it had to do with sediment. Yeah, there was, is it because you're now distinguishing between minor and major that you're reducing the fee to nothing for the minor ones?
Okay, Jenna?
Yes,
I think it's the page.
Yep, that's correct. So sometimes we receive very kind of minor or routine type plans or reports that don't really require a whole lot of staff input. Often these plans will go to our environmental engineer for review. And in some cases, if they're very minor and routine, they don't need to go through our engineering staff, and our permitting, our regulations officers will just review and sign off on them. So we didn't feel we needed to charge for those really minor reports that don't get sent to our engineering staff. And then we've added kind of those 2 new categories, the intermediate and major, which would go for review by our engineer. And again, we would provide definition of that in the actual fee schedules.
Does that make sense, Marie?
Yeah, that's what I thought. That just confirms it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, just on the other point, you know, that we will continue to consult with the development industry, and then we do that every year when there's a change in fees and policy. But for right now, we're just adjusting fees to conform to our current policy. So Paul, you're next.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have 2 questions that came out of the report itself, and then a third one related to the request for delay of implementation. My first question is, what's the relationship between these fee increases and we're going to increase annual fees by 320,000. Can we relate that directly to the municipal levy, or is it more complicated than that?
Jenna?
Sure, through you, Chair. It's a little bit more complicated than that, just because we have been increasing capacity. So some of those capacity increases have been happening this year and have been scheduled, were budgeted for this year, but only for a portion of the year. So we are expecting our staffing costs, our operating expenses to increase over the next year for 2023 as well. So once we have kind of everybody in place and a full staffing complement, we're expecting to see our fees increase, but also our staffing costs increase. And again, so I guess, so we are trying to achieve that 50-50, but as our fees will increase, so will our levy should match it, so we're not expecting a huge change in levy. I'm sorry, I didn't explain that very well, but does that make sense? And maybe if Christine's on, she can add to that.
Christine, are you there on the call? Maybe we don't have Christine with us right now. Is that okay, Paul, or?
Yeah, so it's all revenue. So in theory, if we're getting more revenue from the fees, then that should offset some of potential increase to municipal levy. That's the way I understand it. But
yeah, I guess through you, Chair, that is the hope, that we wouldn't need to increase levy, but I'm not sure it would lower levy because our operating expenses are going up due to those capacity increases. So while we're increasing kind of revenue from our fees, we're also increasing our operating expenses.
And that's kind of, your answer there kind of ties into my next question, which is we just approved an increase in remuneration, and there's a possibility, we've talked in the past about staffing increase to deal with the workload. The calculations for these fees, does that take those possibilities into effect, or are we working with what the expenses are now to get to the 50-50 ratio?
Yeah, so through you, Chair, so our 2022 budget included an increase for the results of the compensation review. So we did try and factor in some of what was just approved by the board into our 2022 budget. We've also and that hasn't been implemented to date, right? So we do have some room in our wages to implement that moving forward for the remainder of this year. We've also had some staff departures this year. So we've been understaffed for a portion of the year already this year, which has resulted in savings in some of our wages. And then the capacity that we have been adding, the positions we have been adding were budgeted. So they were included in the budget for this year. So for the most part, I think we've captured the results of the compensation review in our 2022 budget. So it shouldn't increase our wages, our budgeted wages for 2022.
Well, that's good to know that we're not going to make these fee increases now, and then in another year when we have higher costs, we have to make more fee increases to get back to that 50% level. My last question is, in the email that we received this morning, it said that there was no consultation with the industry about these fee increases. So just what consultation was there? And get any input that we received from them to this point.
Jenna?
Right, through you, Chair. So there isn't any required consultation for fee changes or fee increases like this. I mean, there's been some conversations with the development community, but not with respect to our fee increases or our fee updates. So we really haven't done consultation. So that's very true. We could be doing some consultation and communications with the development community around this for sure.
Yeah, and it kind of ties in Zora Township. Our last meeting, we voted to increase our building permit fees in principle with a an open house or a consultation meeting to come before we make the full. So I guess the process is a little bit different, but thank you for the answers, Jen. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I've got Sandy. Go ahead, Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple more questions on this. Through you to staff, my recollection is that we're still working on discussions with the municipality of London in terms of what we do and what they do. Because over time, for example, they finally hired a hydrogeologist. So we may not need to do a separate assessment in future. So in terms of the concerns raised by the London Development Institute specifically, my read of this is not every change is going to affect them, because not every change applies to development in London. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that's correct.
So in terms of actual increases to the London Development Institute members, it's not going to be on the scale of $50,000, as you mentioned earlier as an estimate, but that's $50,000 across the entire watershed.
Correct.
Right. And narrowing that down to individual properties within London, I mean, I'm not asking you to come up with a number, but it's not going to be that scale. And a lot of these changes that may affect the industry in London seem to be some of the smaller increases, such as I just saw it, something minor variances are $50. Site plan is a $50 change. An official plan amendment is a couple of $100. I see that. But, I think some of these can be passed today in listening to my colleagues here on the board and thinking about this. But I would like to add a part B to this, Mr. Chair, that prior to a subsequent fee update, that staff be asked to meet with development industry representatives to explain our policy and our approach. So I'll make that a part B to this.
Okay.
If I could get a seconder.
So I'm looking at our procedures again. So I guess we'll have to do this as an amendment. So Sandy's going to move this amendment, and I see Brian was raising his hand. Are you seconding this, Brian?
I had a comment. I can second it for discussion. Yeah.
Okay. So let me just get this down here. So moved and seconded by Sandy and Brian that we implement this fee increase, but have consultation and communication with the development industry.
No.
Mr. Chair, my suggestion is, that the recommendation from staff is part A. And to add to the recommendation of part B, a part B that says, prior to a subsequent fee increase, staff be asked to meet with the industry to explain the changes.
To meet with industry to explain the changes. You're still looking at a July 1st.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm making the recommendation from staff as written, part A.
Okay.
So Sandy, just for clarification, part B is proposing a change to the policy which would require consultation or education with the development community?
No, I'm not asking that we change the policy. I'm simply asking prior to the next change, they meet with staff. Meet with the industry, and whether or not that becomes part of policy comes when we as a board consider any changes to the policy. It's just kind of a one-timer just to move this forward.
Okay, so the amendment is that that prior to the increase, staff meet with industry to explain the changes. Any discussion at all on this amendment? Brian?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I like, we have our fee policy and it's based off what the board has recommended, and there's been input and from, I'm sure there was consultation and chance for delegations and everything when that policy was implemented. The thing that scares me with consultation on fees is that, do you want to get political with our fee schedule, or do we want to keep it based off what we know to be our cost factor of 50-50? I don't have a problem with educating the community, anybody in the community, about why we're making the changes and what those changes are, but it scares me to get political influence into make what those changes are, those fees would actually be. Because then we go to, are we bonusing one group over another? Because they've politically approached us on the matter. But I am 100% for education and informing people on what's happening. And so I am definitely in favor of doing that as in Sandy's motion there. So that's why I wanted to clarify that. But again, when it comes to what our fee policy is, it is what it is unless we change it. And that should not be politically changed unless it's by the board as a policy change instead of by a separate industry.
Okay.
That's my opinion on that.
Okay, so we're still dealing with the amendment here. I've got Anna. You have a comment on the amendment?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Sandy, for bringing it forward, and happy to support it. I would make a tiny change to that. I haven't seen the motion in front of me, but I've quickly written it down. I would change the word from changes to policy. I think, and like Brian said, education, information, sharing that, I think is vital to the development industry, that they understand our policy. So I don't know if you want to make a change, but I would be supportive regardless. Thank you.
Okay, before I move on here, Sandy, any comments on that at all about changing the last word from the word changes to policy?
Frankly, Mr. Chair, I don't think it's necessary because I would trust staff to explain our policy at the same time.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that.
And frankly, I think our staff will be farsighted and will be sending a copy of our policy out to Mr. Wallace soon anyway, without our direction.
Okay, Marie, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, but I'm really kind of confused on this amendment to the motion. Is it supposed to be that this consulting about these changes or subsequent to any future changes?
My understanding is it deals with these changes, and it's simply a matter of communicating and educating with the industry. And obviously, you know, when there's a change to the policy in the future, at that time there'll be consultation. But this is pertaining to these increases for July 1st.
Okay, so the increases, all right, so it would be more of an education. I mean, I share Brian's concerns about like if we have a policy and these things are just happening pursuant to that policy, that's very different from consulting about the policy itself. So if it's more in the nature of communication and explanation, that's one thing. But if it's like, well, we want your input so we can make a decision, that's something very, very different.
Okay. No, I believe the wording was.
I can read it out.
Yeah,
if you want
Michelle. Sorry, I was going to get to you. Yeah.
Hey,
Michelle, if you could read us the motion as you have it, please.
Yeah. So the amendment is to add a Part B to the existing motion, which was to approve the recommendation as presented in the report. So Part B would read, prior to subsequent fee updates, staff be asked to meet with industry representatives to explain the changes.
Okay. Hope that's clear for everyone. You're okay then, Marie?
Yes, it helps. I mean, if you don't have it written down in front of you, it's kind of hard to follow sometimes. So
Yep.
thank
No,
you, Michelle.
true enough. True enough. Oh, Paul, we got Paul yet. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Paul.
I just want to clarify that when we talk about industry representatives, are we talking about builders and developers throughout the watershed, or are we talking about this one group in the City of London?
I'm not certain.
Alan,
Sandy or Jenna, if somebody could shed some light on that.
I certainly leave it up to staff to decide.
I think the London Development Institute would be the major one, obviously, because they represent quite a number of developers in the City of London, but I'm sure that staff could communicate this to others throughout the watershed.
Yeah, it seems only fair that if we're going to educate and consult with one group, that we have developers and throughout a lot of municipalities, they should be in on this as well, but we don't want to make this a hugely onerous workload for staff. I'm sure they have their communication channels with all these people that they've built up over the years. It could be done relatively easy.
Yep. Okay. All right. So I'm going to call for the vote on the amendment. And it's moved by Sandy and seconded by Brian. And Michelle, if I could get you to read it one more time, just so that everybody's got this again in their minds, what exactly the motion reads, the amendment reads.
Yes. So, sorry, just wanted to make sure I was unmuted. So the motion on the floor is to add a part B. So amending the initial so the original motion was to approve the recommendation as presented in the report. And then there was an amendment moved by Sandy, seconded by Brian, to add a part B that would read, prior to subsequent fee update, staff be asked to meet with industry representatives to explain the changes.
Okay. And with that, I am going to call for the vote on the amendment. And Michelle, if you could do the roll, please.
Yes. Marie Blosh?
No.
No. Anna Hopkins?
Yes.
Tony Jackson?
Yes.
Sandy Levin?
Yes.
Margaret Lupton?
Yes.
Hugh McDermott?
Yes.
Paul Mitchell?
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray?
Yes.
Brian Petrie?
Yes.
Jim Reffel?
Yes.
Joe Salter?
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg? Oh, sorry, he's not here. Alex Westman?
Yes.
And Alan Dale?
Yes. Okay, so the amendment's carried. And now we go back to the full amended motion, which is that the board of directors approve the recommendations as presented in the report. And as Michelle said, now including the part B. So I think we've had lots of good discussion on this as well. And I'm going to call for the vote. And Michelle, if you could do the roll, please, on the full amended motion.
Marie Blosh?
Before we vote on this, can I just ask, do we need an amendment to change any direction about the pre-consultation fee? Or will that just be done as?
It was included in there, and I think Jenna explained it. I think that everyone is, you know, if you're satisfied with it, that you're in favor of the package, and if you're not, you can vote against. But I think it was well explained by Jenna. So
Yeah, no, it seemed like it was fairly clear that the pre-consultation fee wouldn't apply to just fairly small inquiries from individuals. But do we need to actually make an amendment to this motion in order to clarify that, or can that just be done?
No, the table already says it's just for Planning Act applications.
yeah, I think Jenna explained that there are definitions there, and they were not included in the package, but there are definitions. So we'll leave it to staff to implement that and follow those definitions.
Okay, it's, yeah, I'm sure it'll be done. I just didn't know, follow all the, dot all the I's and cross the T's here. Okay,
Okay.
I will
Okay.
vote yes.
Anna Hopkins.
I'll vote
Sorry.
Anna?
Yes.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes.
Margaret Lupton.
Yes.
Hugh McDermott.
Yes.
Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray.
Yes.
Brian Petrie.
Yes.
Jim Reffel.
Yes.
Joe Salter.
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
And Alan Dale.
Yes. Okay, so that motion is carried. Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate that. So we've been dealing with some pretty, some difficult issues and some things that we really need to wrap our heads around here. So we'll move on now to item 6.3, Provincial Offences Act Officer Designation. And this is for Brad Dryberg. And we dealt with Brad before. He's been a staff member for us for a number of years, and he was previously designated for some other work, but now he's moving into another department. So if I could get Paul to move this and Anna Marie to second it, please.
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to turn this over to staff here now. I think we're going back to Jenna here. She's going to explain this and do some introductions and stuff here for us.
Great, thanks. So through you, Chair, I've been taking a little bit of heat for stealing staff from other units. But Brad Dryberg joined our unit a couple of weeks ago. He joined the authority back in 2017 as parks staff and has been working most recently as the assistant superintendent at Piddock. He's come over as our new regulations assistant. He'll be supporting our regulations officers that work outside of the City of London and the remainder of the watershed. And he's been a great addition over the last couple of weeks. As our chair mentioned, he's already been designated as a POA officer by this board under Section 29. So this recommendation is to appoint him as a POA officer under Section 28. And he'll be handling minor and routine permits and supporting our regulations officers on some other larger files. So I'll get Brad, if he's here, to turn his camera on and say a quick hello.
Yes, thanks, Jenna. As you said, I've been designated last year as a Section 29 POA officer, so I'm excited in this new role and look forward to continually learning and helping out as best as I can.
Okay, thank you, Brad. We all thought that Parks was the place to be, but no, obviously there's a lot more to the organization, and it's great that people are willing to serve throughout the organization. Any comments or questions at all from any board members? Not seeing or hearing anything. So we've got the motion in front of us, and it's been duly moved and seconded. So I'm going to call for the vote. And Michelle, if you could do the roll, please.
Marie Blosh.
yes.
Anna Hopkins.
Yes.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Sandy Levin.
Yes.
Margaret Lupton.
Yes.
Hugh McDermott.
Yes.
Paul Mitchell.
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray.
Yes.
Brian Petrie.
Ryan, are you there?
Right.
Yes.
Jim Reffel.
Yes.
Joe Salter.
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
And Alan Dale.
Yes. All right, so that's carried. And again, congratulations, Brad. Really appreciate it, and best of luck. And I hope you enjoy your new position within the organization. And we look forward to continuing to work with you in the years to come.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Jenna. Jenna's been busy here, but we'll be back with Jenna again in a moment. But the next one we have is a 6.4. And that is quarterly progress report. Again, this is part of this these overhauls to the CA Act. There's a lot more reporting. We have to continually give now these quarterly updates. But I'll turn it over to, well, actually, I want to get, if Joe could move this, and we don't have Mark with us. Can I get Jim? Joe, do you want to second this and get Jim to second? Or Joe to move it and Jim to second it, please?
So moved.
I second that.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, Tracy, I'll let you outline this for us, please.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to highlight a few of the items in the report. This is our first quarterly report back to the MECP on progress, any updates, any changes to our inventories of programs and services. So as you can see in the attached inventory, there's been a few things that have been highlighted. And some of those changes and additions are to add further clarity, and felt that those were the main items that the ministry was suggesting that they wanted in addition through a webinar that myself, some of our members here today, as well as some senior staff participated in back in May. I do actually have a follow-up meeting tomorrow morning with MECP staff just to review these changes that we've made and make sure that we've captured what their intent was. Again, a little bit more level of detail in outlining when we've had agreements in the past. A few changes that were suggested through our consultations with the City of London. They provided written comments, and we were able to sit down with a number of their senior managers who are part of an enterprise-wide team to go through these changes to our regulations. So it was great to hear their feedback, and again, some additional items were added for clarification, and certainly their comments incorporated and recognize that they appreciate all of the Category 3 programs that we undertake in the city itself. So with that, have been having lots of conversations with their municipal staff. Many want to see what those draft agreements look like. So those are the next steps. Our GMs in the Southwest, I mentioned that meeting where we were talking about the fees policy in one of the previous reports. But the other idea that we've been sharing and trying to coordinate is what our MOUs will look like, these cost apportionment agreements. And all are in agreement that we want to keep it as simple as possible and have some flexibility too. So perhaps an overarching agreement that captures the terminology used for those categorization of the programs and services with schedules attached that can be reviewed like we would typically do through our normal budgeting process, updates those what programs would be covered under levy and those levy amounts versus those agreements, some that are already in place for Category 2, and then furthering and developing the agreements for those Category 3 programs. So that's keeping us busy for the next few months, getting some drafts together, and then being able to again continue those conversations with the municipalities. So all have stated that they've really found the inventories of programs and services. And again, I'm speaking to mostly CAOs and clerks or senior staff, that they really find it a great education tool because it breaks down the role of the CA and who the request is coming from to be providing those programs and services. So it's great to hear that they found it beneficial. I know it's been a process and we'll continue down this process, but in the end, I think it'll provide that clarity and of responsibility moving forward. With that, open to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Any comments or questions all from board members? Anna, go ahead, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, had a problem with my mute button. I just want to thank staff for the quarterly progress report. It's really important. I think that with all the changes that are going on throughout the province, throughout CAs, throughout municipalities, that we kind of get a handle on what's going on. I wanted to speak to number A as it relates to the City of London, and understand that the city did not provide any comments as it relates to category 3. And I really appreciate knowing that. And I would assume that the programs and services they're quite satisfied with, given that they did not make any comments. I do have a quick question through you, Mr. Chair, to staff around the DMOU. The reason I'm asking that question is that committee last week, we received a report from LDI and London Home Builders Association, really, with a number of recommendations that the committee has sent back for city staff to respond. And one of the recommendations was to get the MOU implemented as soon as possible. I'm really pleased to see that the Upper Thames is continuing discussions with the DMOU. I would assume that's all the same, DMOU or MOU, and maybe that's a quick question through you to staff.
Okay, Tracy?
Yes, through the chair, yes, that clarification is correct. In London, we've identified it as the development MOU for the planning and development side of things with the city, to differentiate it from the MOUs that may be required for those category 3 programs and services. Certainly, yes, we had some discussion about that when we met with the City of London. It's our intent to continue those discussions to get that finalized.
Good
Jenna,
to
I'm not sure if Jenna wanted to add anything else in case she's had a follow-up in the last week or so with the staff at the city.
Any late developments there, Jenna?
No, through you, Chair, I don't have anything further to add. As Tracy mentioned, we definitely discussed the DMOU, and the City of London staff are here for an in-person meeting. And we're looking forward to continuing those discussions and moving forward with the DMOU.
Okay, thanks. Is that good, Anna?
Yeah, good to know that discussions continue, and I'm sure there's a lot of work that has to be done here. So thanks very much for the report.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so I will call for the vote on this. And Michelle, if you could do the roll, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Ann Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Margaret?
Didn't go through. Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. Takes us down to item number 7, and that is reports for information. And the first one is 7.1, and that's our Section 28 status report. So if I could get Brian to move that and Jim to second it, please.
So moved.
So seconded.
Perfect, thank you. And we've got Jenna here again to answer some questions. And first of all, we've got Paul. So go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, to Jenna. The one that kind of jumped out at me was permit 78-22, proposed interior renovations, and appeared to be a house in London. You know, why would the Upper Thames have any comment or a role to play in interior renovations?
Sure. So through you, Chair. So to clarify, we don't generally get involved in interior renovations. However, this is a property that's within the floodplain, and you'll note in the details it talks about changes to openings, so windows and doors. So we would have different flood proofing requirements when anyone is developing within the floodplain. So that whatever, and Jessica Schnaithman, who's our regulations officer in the City of London, who was leading this file, is off this week, so she can't speak to the details, but and I don't know the specifics of this one in particular, but other than I do know that Jessica's been involved in this one. It's part of a larger project. So there is an addition, an attached garage being proposed to this property, which Jessica's been involved in reviewing. And then There's been a few setbacks with that addition, and the property owners wanted to move forward with their interior renovations, which again included changes to openings, windows and doors. So Jessica has issued a permit for that ahead of the proposed addition.
But thanks for clarifying that. I know we've had lots of discussion about workload and staffing levels, and it just seemed kind of strange to me, but being in a floodplain, that makes all the difference. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. And yes, you'll see in the report too, we've talked a bit more about not just the number of applications, but ones that have been carried over and ones that are, in the sort of in line in the queue. So it's trying to give this board a little bit more information on that workload. Any further comments or questions? I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so I'm going to call for the vote. And Michelle, if you could do the roll, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. So that's carried. Thank you. And thanks again to Jenna. And now we'll move down to item 7.2. This is the asset management and multi-year budget. This is something that we've been started to talk about. And so we've got a report now from staff. If I could get Alex to move this and Marie to second it, please.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Good, thank you. So yeah, this is all fairly new. This came through the, as a result of the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. And I'll turn it over to Tracy to say a few words.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to provide the board back with an update on how we're intending to proceed. And one of our biggest challenges is making sure that managers and senior staff have the right tools to be doing this work. So a lot of that is Christine Saracino, and she's here today to answer any questions, is dealing with and finding a good software solution that works for us for both asset management and multi-year budget processes. She's been able to focus in on some of the budgeting software and look at and even speak to some of our municipalities who are using some of the software that she's been learning about and what will work with our current system. So that's the other part of the challenge. So we're certainly have a path forward, and we'll be working towards these suggestions and these recommendations, I should say, from the Finance and Audit Committee. Timing will be kind of dependent on when we can have those tools in place and the staff timing in place as well. As you saw back from the report for the 20-year capital improvements to our capital budget for our flood control structures, that's something that we have been working on, and those are those areas in regulation that the focus is on, making sure that we're looking beyond and looking out, and in that case it's a 20-year forecast. So certainly there's work that has been done to move us in that direction. We recognize that we still have some work to do to get us there for future budgets. If you have any questions, myself or Christine can answer.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. We'll open it up for comments or questions. And Paul, you're first.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to Tracy. I'm all for multi-year budgeting as far as providing information 5-10 years out, because rather than working in a one-year bubble, because the decisions we make on this year's budget will have impact on budgets down the road. But are we looking at some point to adopting multi-year budgets similar to what the City of London does?
Through the chair, no, I think our approval will still be 1 year out, looking 1 year ahead, but forecasting of longer terms. Yeah, City of London's a little bit unique in those approvals up front for the entire terms, but that's not our intent to quite follow that process. Christine, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Thank you, Tracy and Mr. Chair. I can envision perhaps multi-year approvals for capital spending, because many of those projects, those build projects, those repair projects do span multiple years. And there are a lot of factors that come into play that could delay capital spending. So for us at this time, I think possibly multi-year capital approvals could happen, but I don't see it for operating purposes, not for some time to come.
Okay, thank you for those answers. That's what I would support. It's similar to what we do at the township level. So I just wanted to clarify what the.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Brian, you're next.
Yeah, fully supportive of this. Anytime you can try to get a picture of what's going to happen in the future, it doesn't have to be perfect, but every little piece helps tell the picture, and especially this mix with all the other changes that are going on. You've got all your inventories and programs. Now you can look at your asset management for those programs and the costs going forward and the staff levels and what you're going to need to do with fees. And it's just going to help drive that picture even further to give staff all the information they need so we can be successful going forward and try to limit those spike increases in levy. And that's what's really important. You know, if you can get that, obviously, let's face it, costs are going to go up. But if you can do it in a general sense and plan for it and move things around, then that's the goal. And these tools all helped. Everybody in municipal government here knows about asset management and what it does. And the benefits from it and the multi-year budget cycle. I know our municipality does it with capital because that's the easiest when you have your capital forecast, but there's no reason it can't be done with the other operating as well, because you know, as an organization, you should be doing what you're planning for to happen in the next 4 to 5 years, unless there's significant changes in government policy, and I'll leave that there.
Okay, thanks. Any further comments or questions? I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so I will call for the vote. And Michelle, if you could do the roll, please.
Sorry. Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Margaret?
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. And next item we have is 7.3, and that's the FYI report. And lots of good information in there as always. Good update on some of the things that's happening with the aquatics program, and rather interesting to read about that. And of course, it will tie into our watershed report cards. So all important work that's being done. And if I can get Tony to move this, please, and Anna to second it.
So moved.
Anna?
I second.
Oh, good. Thank you. Any comments or questions at all from board members on the FYI report? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing anything there for questions or comments, so I'll call for the vote to receive this. And Michelle, if you could do the roll call, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes, and that's carried. And I skipped over there. I had another comment here because one of the events in the FYI was Greenfest, and I think Tracy had some family involved with that. So that was Sorry, Tracy.
No, no worries. Yeah, I could say that Greenfest, my son was able to participate. He's in one of the eco classes or green classes, and it was a fantastic day. So it was so good to see everyone and the school kids out there again and being able to participate in these activities that are hands-on and learning about the natural environment right over here in our park. So.
Yep, very good. Okay, so next item we have is number 8, and that's notices of motion. And there is one there that's been included, and it's from Tony. And so I would propose that then we would have direction to staff then that they could get some information on this for us, and we can deal with this at our next meeting. Any, I don't know, Tony, if you want to speak to this first at all?
No, I don't have a lot to say other than what's in the report. I had an understanding that if we had it in the week before the board meeting, it could be included for a decision. Maybe I was wrong in that assumption or understanding, and maybe staff could correct me on that. But anyway, first we'll start with that, I guess. And,
okay.
Get Tracy's or staff's response.
Yeah, no, it was my understanding that it would be in as a notice, and then now that we've got notice, now staff can get some information. But Tracy, if you want to clarify that.
Yeah, sure. And as we discussed, Tony, I appreciated having this so we can include it in writing in the agenda as the notice. And certainly you have an opportunity to speak to it today, but as noted, it'd be good for staff to have time to prepare a report, bring it back. Because I think that everyone would appreciate us to have that conversation and look at our interim policy, have some discussion with Grant, our solicitor, and then be able to report back to the board in a more comprehensive format.
Sure. So we have no board meeting in July. So this doesn't come back until August.
And can I add just one more piece just to round out I got the policy in front of me, just to round out the policy. There is section, so what Tracy was referring to was in section 15.1. We also do have a 15.2 that says any motion may be introduced without notice. So to me, that would mean if you, Tony, if you wanted to go ahead and discuss it at this meeting, oh, I lost my space. Without debate, sorry, any motion may be introduced without notice if the board of directors without debate dispenses of the notice requirement on the affirmative vote of at least 2/3 of the members present and voting. So that's the other option.
Okay. So that's, would it have to come back to our next meeting? Because this is a notice of motion today, unless 2/3 of the board agrees to waive that and make a decision on this today. Okay. So
do we?
You're okay with that, Tony, or what do you want to try for getting the 2/3 support today, or?
I guess if people want to entertain it today, I'm fine by that. If not, I don't see this as overly complicated, but anyway, I guess it's up to the board.
Okay. Well, Tony's put this forward for today. And if the board members would like to dispense with the policy and make a decision on this today, we need 2/3 support, but we'll need somebody to second this to deal with it today. So I'm seeing some bunch of hands up here, but I'll start at the top. Brian, are you looking to?
I was just going to comment before that happened. No, I'm fine with not seconding it, but because Tony, I had the same question, because in our policy at our council, if you do get it on the agenda before a certain time, it is included. I guess our policy here is a little bit different, where it has to be before the end of the last meeting. So if it's not in before the end of the last meeting, then it has to go to the next meeting unless you get the 2/3. But I don't know if that provides clarification or not.
Okay, well, I'm still looking for a seconder here. If we're going to deal with this today. So Anna, Marie, and I got Sandy with a hand up. Is anybody looking to second this?
I'm willing to second it because, Mr. Chair, I think our policy as worded in section 15 is vague. And I think Tony has a fair point that it's unclear in 15.1 which agenda it would go on. And he has provided it before the meeting, so I'm willing to second the motion that we dispense with the policy. If there's a 2/3 vote, we can deal with the notice of motion.
Okay, so we've got Tony moving it, Sandy seconding it, and I think it's pretty clear. Either we decide we want to deal with this today, or we want to, as Tracy said, get some information from staff and deal with it at our next meeting. So I don't know if we need a whole lot of discussion on this, but I see
There's
Anna,
no
you've
debate
got
on
your
the
hand-
motion.
There's no debate.
Okay, thank
We
you.
go straight
Got
to the
that-
vote.
We got that clear. So before we go any further, we'll need to vote on this. And a reminder, it needs 2/3 support in order to carry. So if everyone's prepared to vote, I will ask Michelle to do the roll, please.
Marie Blosh,
No.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
No.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
No.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
No.
Alex Westman,
No.
and Alan Dale.
No,
Okay, so just
but
give me
I
a second to count.
have 7 in favor and 6 opposed.
So we discussed in August.
So in my calculations, yes, we have not achieved 2/3 support. And so this will be dealt with at our next meeting. Okay. So we'll look forward to getting some information from staff and seeing that on the agenda at our next meeting. So next item we have is number 9. And that is chair's comments. Just a few things I'll mention here. I'll try to keep it brief because I know we're running short of time here, folks. We've been at this for 2 hours and we've got a couple of important items yet to deal with. Kim Gavin, who is the general manager for Conservation Ontario, has retired. Bonnie Fox is currently the acting GM at Conservation Ontario, and the hiring process has begun. So we'll look to have a new general manager in place fairly soon, and we'll keep you posted on that. I had the pleasure of attending the Children's Water Festival. That was on June the 11th back at Piddock, and it's great weather that day for the most part. It got a little stormy there at the end, but great turnout. And it was a really, I think, a good trial run to sort of get back in the groove of running these things. It's been a little bit of a hiatus for the last couple of years. So great thank you to staff from our organization who were involved in coordinating this, and also the staff from another number of other organizations who also took part. And lastly, I'd just like to mention that it is summertime, and great opportunity to get out there and enjoy our parks and the trails and step into nature. It's life's pretty hectic, pretty stressful. I know mine certainly has been for the last couple of weeks, and it's good to get out there and just spend some time in nature and to relax. And I know we've talked about this at Conservation Ontario. They've got a new website up and running, and you can go throughout the province and you can look at the website and you can find all sorts of activities, and you can search by area or search by the activity, and you can find a local trail or park and get out there and enjoy it. And it's certainly real beneficial. And I know many times where I've had the pleasure of being in one of our parks and in one of our trails, and I've thought, this is one of the reasons why we do this. CAs have a lot of public lands. We have a lot of public lands that we don't charge a fee for, and we have people out there enjoying them, and we're quite proud of that. But you sometimes wonder if it's worth it. You know, why are we doing all this stuff and not making any revenue, and it's being supported? But if you get out there and enjoy it, those thoughts and those doubts, they start to go away. So encourage you to get out there and enjoy the summer. With that, takes us up to item number 10, which is members' comments. Does anyone else have any comments they'd like to share? Paul, go ahead.
I briefly want to mention the Coyote Nature School, which is a outdoor training on nature for children age 5 to 11. It's operated by Kendra Martin, who is a retired teacher, has a lot of experience in this type of work. Some of the sessions are held in Harrington, making use of the conservation area, the historic mill that's on conservation property, and also the Harrington Community Center. And it's being put on a 1-year trial basis of cooperation between Ms. Martin, the Harrington Area Community Association, and Upper Thames staff. And they've completed their spring sessions, which started in March and ended a couple of weeks ago. We're very successful, and they will continue throughout the summer and over the next year. And if anybody wants to see any more information, they have an excellent website, Coyote Nature School. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Anyone else?
I see Alex Westman has his
No, go ahead, Alex.
Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I had the great opportunity to travel with my my scout troop. Well, actually, our beavers and cubs a couple of weeks ago to Longwoods in the Lower Thames Valley conservation area there, and I was overwhelmed and moved by the quality of the presentation they do there for the village, the native village they have there for the Haudenosaunee. And I was just wondering, while we were traveling around there and learning with it was actually Alison Clagus that conducted the tour. I understand she used to work for Upper Thames. But anyhow, I was just wondering what the appetite would be, because we do our territorial greetings and we acknowledge the First Nations link to the lands that we preserve. I'm just wondering if there was any appetite to do any kind of First Nations village presentation or something like that. I know that they partner with local people, like local First Nations people, to build the village at Longwoods, but maybe for a future consideration, I thought it'd be kind of a neat addition for our parks to have some features like that. Anyhow, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thanks. Tracy, I don't know if that was something we've got planned, or staff could get some information for us on that.
Certainly, through the chair. Part of what we've discussed internally, again, is having these opportunities to have those discussions and those ongoing communications with our First Nations communities, and asking them first, what would they like? And as we go through our broader strategies for our conservation lands, I think this is a great opportunity for us to do that outreach and see if there are opportunities to consider how we can incorporate some of that, not only Indigenous knowledge, but education opportunities in future programming. So that's something that we'll be looking at as we go through this transition period and develop those broader conservation land strategies.
Okay, thanks, Tracy, and thank you, Alex. I'm not seeing anyone else here, so takes us down to item number 11, and that's comments from the general manager. So Tracy.
Yeah, in the interest of time, I'll keep it really brief. I just wanted to let everyone know too that our main building here at the WCC will be opening the doors July 4th. We've typically been having appointment only, but we'll be opening the doors more permanently. Again, we'll continue to monitor public health. We're still encouraging people to make an appointment though. You know, it's a busy time of year. Historically, it's always been a challenge when someone pops by the office and just hopes that someone's here. And, you know, the person could be around, but they might be tied up in meetings all afternoon. So again, I think I've seen it on a number of municipal websites as well, where it's that notice that, you know, please make appointments. I think everyone appreciates that. So, that's how we'll be moving forward. So just wanted to mention that, and yeah, hope everyone has a good summer with our time off until our August meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have item number 12, which is reports in camera. And so we'll need to go into closed session. If I could get Margaret to move that, please, and Sandy to second it.
So move.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. And I'll call for the vote to go into closed session. Michelle, if you could do the roll, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Anna Hopkins,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Sandy Levin,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Alex Westman,
Yes.
and Alan Dale.
Yes. Okay, so that's carried. We will now go into closed session, and we'll give Emily a moment here to stop the live stream, and there'll have to be some people that will be moved out into the waiting room and such.
The live stream is paused, so we're good there.
Yeah, and just so you're aware, Emily, Brent and Teresa.
Okay. I don't think anyone else is trying to stick with us that shouldn't be here.